What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Available online. Stream it up at sportstalk1051.com. Google and Alexa home devices. Of course, the app. Take it on the go. And video stream also up and rolling right now. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Join us over there if you'd like to. Appreciate you making us a part of your starts on this kind of snowy day. Be careful if you're just getting ready to hit the roads out there this morning. But what do we got on the good old game plan for us? Bucks are back in action tonight. Final game before the All-Star break coming up here. Quick road trip to Memphis. So Bucks looking to end. It's not really the first half, but it's like what 65% of the way through the season. But I think we'll call it a half for argument's sake here, because after this All-Star break, we know it's kind of go time, and to kind of get uh, into a little bit of a rhythm, a little bit of momentum and such, and hopefully everything kind of starts to come together before the playoffs come in. Hopefully, playing your best basketball as the playoffs approach, and once you get into the postseason there too. So we'll talk some hoops. Timberwolves are also back in action tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. So we'll hit that up and talk some hoops coming up here throughout the morning. Latest standings though in the NBA, if that's something you're kind of following along with right now. Boston's still in that top spot, but they're playing really good basketball. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 8 games ahead of Milwaukee in that third spot. Cleveland sitting at number 2, 9-1 in their last 10. They're playing red hot. Milwaukee's 2 games back from them for that 2 seed. Kind of, I mean, a lot of basketball yet to be played, but the playoffs started today. Bucks would be playing Indiana in that first round matchup, which, if you're a Bucks fan, probably a little bit nervous about. Timberwolves still holding on to that one spot. They're riding a 3-game winning streak, 7-3 in their last 10, 1 game ahead of the OKC Thunder. You want to talk about how crazy this was? I mean, just a couple days ago, Monday, we opened it up, and Minnesota was just like a half game above both OKC, Clippers, Denver. Denver's now 2.5 back from Minnesota. They're riding a 3-game losing streak. So we got that on the docket here. Hey, believe it or not, baseball season kind of feels like, okay, now we're going here. Pitchers and catchers reported. Sounds like the majority of the Brewers, even like position players, are there, except for a couple. Right now, Crit doesn't. I mean, don't know what plan is. I wouldn't freak out about it, because position players get till next week to report. But it sounds like a lot of the other players, position players, who are already there in camp. I think one was at Todd Rosiak had tweeted out. Did see that one of them was Christian Yelich. He hasn't seen yet, but again, they got till next week. But a lot of the guys already reporting early, and we see that across the league with other teams and such. But a lot of the guys already reporting early for the crew. So, in honor of pitchers and catchers reporting, by the way, if you want to go to a Brewers game, looking at tickets, all games now go on sale today. All right, we know a few days ago they kind of had that first dibs for the Cubs series and such, but now all games on sale starting today. But we're going to talk a little baseball here, kind of with pitchers and catchers reporting. We'll kind of look at maybe some of the pitchers and such. There was a piece up at MLB.com, or excuse me, Brewers.com, and the 3 key storylines heading into Brewers spring training. Okay. If I were to ask you that question, if I were to ask you, what do you think are the biggest storylines heading into Brewers spring training, what would they be? And maybe they're the same as what the writers, Brewers.com, Adam McCulvey and such, have on there. I'll tell you, their 3 is this a postseason caliber starting rotation? That's number 1. Number 2, how will Pat Murphy fare in his first season? And number 3, which kids will seize the opportunity. Which kids? And we know those are talking about the youngsters, right? Jackson Cheerio is probably going to be a big one out there. Sal Frelick, Garrett Mitchell, Joey Weimer. Could Tyler Black and Joey Ortiz form kind of a platoon at third base? There are jobs up for grabs in this spring training. So when you take a look at it for the Crew, what are maybe your top storylines heading into this, or really maybe what are you kind of paying attention to, or what are you going to be following along with when it comes to spring training here for the Crew? Is there a certain play? I mean, Jackson Cheerio is going to get a ton of attention, right? I mean, the spotlight is going to be on that kid. It has been kind of the last couple of years, but it's gotten a little bit bigger now with the contract and such. But fans and others across Major League Baseball, they're going to be paying attention to Jackson Cheerio and kind of keeping tabs on him and seeing how he performs in spring training. And I guarantee you, if he starts off a little slow, there's going to be some overreaction to it. If he starts off hot, there's going to be a little overreaction to it as well. It's going to be a lot of excitement surrounding that. But what or who will you be kind of following along with the most now that spring training's kind of officially here? I know we got games. The first game for the Brew Crew starts on the 24th. So, I mean, not that long away here. Not that long. So, hey, back to hoops. Speaking of hoops, too, just want a quick note in the last game at Zorn Arena there for the Blue Gold women's basketball team. That was last night. They did fall to Stevens Point 60-52. But if you want to take in another game at Zorn Arena, the men's team will be over there Saturday. By the way, the men's team did pick up a win on the road against Stevens Point. Both stout men's and women's teams did pick up wins against River Falls as the WIAC regular season basketball season starting to wrap up here, and some sports already getting into postseason play. We know swimming and diving for the Blue Golds, they began WIAC championships yesterday. Hockey, we know the seeding's going on there. Wrestling, they've got the WIAC championships coming up this weekend. Big time expectations for that program. Speaking of which, we've got a new episode of the Rollin' with the Golds podcast dropping at 9 a.m. this morning. We kind of recap and preview a lot of those sports, and it's a fantastic conversation in the second half of the podcast. I highly recommend listening to it. Mitch Stegman, outdoor track and field national champion. What a kid. What an awesome story, too. I don't want to give it away too much, but just a fantastic story. So check that out later on this morning. We got some receive or defer. Play along with us. If you've got any suggestions for some receive or defer questions, you can let us know via that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line with a quick text, 715-830-1912. Outdoor Tidbits with Conservation Warden Jake Bulks also coming at you. That'll be at 8:30 this morning. You got a question for Jake? Let us know. You got to text it to me so I can get it right away. Again, on that texting line. Okay, so we'll get Outdoor Tidbits coming up at about 8:30. And if you've missed any segments of our Outdoor Tidbits with Jake, reminder, you can also catch that as part of the Man Cave podcast every Thursday. So we got separate segments of that listed up under the Man Cave podcast playlist, or you can check it out as well at sportstalk1051.com. Just hover over the podcast tab, and you'll see the drop-down menu come, and you'll see the Outdoor Tidbits one there. You've got the Business of Sports. You've got the local sports roundup, Inside the Training Room, all that good stuff. All that good stuff. So, but let's get things rolling here this morning. I know we got some hoops. We got the Bucks back in action here. I kind of want to change it up. It might have felt more like spring for the longest time here, and I know we got a little snow here in our areas and such, and maybe that kind of takes away for a little bit from the baseball field here. But I want to talk a little baseball to open up things with pitchers and catchers reporting, maybe a little enthusiasm with the new season coming at you. And I know this Brewers offseason has kind of been up and down in terms of emotions and such, but it's a different spring training. It's kind of a new era ushering in, right? I think that's probably the best way maybe to put it. Would you say? But nonetheless, what do you think the top storylines heading into this spring training for the Crew will be, or who are some of the players maybe outside of Jackson Cheerio that you're kind of curious to see how they do in spring training? Maybe it is Tyler Black, this potential youngster being the third baseman. Maybe it's the new guys coming in from that Corbin Burns trade, like, DL Hall or Ortiz. Maybe it's those guys. Like, you don't know a whole lot about them, but hey, they came over in a Corbin Burns trade. They better be good. I know a lot of Brewers fans. They're hoping that these guys are good because if you're moving on from one of the better pitchers out there, hey, you better get some impact players in return. Or maybe it's, hey, can Freddie Peralta be the ace? Can he be the number one starting pitcher for this team? We've seen him over the years. Is he maybe ready to elevate his game just a little bit more? When you talk about a number one guy, you're feeling pretty darn good every time that they're out on the mound that you are going to pick up a win. So we've got a lot of things we could be looking at. What about you, though? All right. Start to hit me up with those texts. Okay. We'll take our first break and we'll get things rolling here this morning. I know it's a little snowy out there. Road's a little slick, so be careful. But let's think a little baseball here, shall we? We'll be back in just a few minutes. We begin this morning. Before we get into some baseball talk and that sort of stuff, I wanted to wait for intern to come in here because I know you have been in that area a lot. But with the Kansas City Super Bowl parade yesterday and the shootings that went on, 22 injured, one passing away. One person who passed away is actually a radio DJ, radio host over there, a young woman in her 40s, and a mother over there, but. An incredibly sad, awful situation. There's other words I want to say.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say there are a lot of words we could use, but boy, it happened down at Union Station. That's the same place they held the draft.
Yep.
And it's right a kitty corner from the Weston Crown Center where I go every fall. And I always walk over to Union Station. Through Union Station, we go over to a place called Jack Stack's. If anybody's familiar with Kansas City, Jack Stack's, an unbelievably good barbecue place. And it's an old part of an old station as well. So I'm very familiar with that area. You'll see the memorial, the tall kind of a round chimney that you see. That's a memorial, war memorial on the park right across the road as well. And yeah, every time I see that, and I just casually turned on the TV and last evening, I don't know, 4 or 5 o'clock, and saw this, and I thought, what next? Right down there, Union Station. Very familiar with where they were and the pictures that they showed. It's just such a sad state. And I know we don't want to get into a political controversy over this thing, but boy, pretty soon, and how long are we going to go before we have background checks? Because these people that are doing all these shootings, they've got problems, and you can't give them guns.
Mm-hmm.
Enough said.
Yeah, just what was supposed to be a very celebratory day ending, and just an awful tragedy over there too. So
yeah, what a horror. And I just heard on the way in on just this morning, I don't know if you were listening as well, they were talking about Andy Reid's wife. There was some young kids just in a state of flux, like they were in a daze, wandering around, and she got him and hugged him and said, "Hang on, it'll be all right." So Amy Reid, Andy's wife, I mean, it just, that's when a community comes together. Unfortunately, they came together for the celebration, but when the rubber meets the road, you got to have people that can help out. And Amy Reid did that. She got away from being the coach's wife and this and everything. I'm a citizen of Kansas City. I'm going to do what I can to help out. It's a terrible situation when you have to, when it comes to that. I mean, you don't know what to say because these things are happening all too often. Does this mean we can't have celebrations? Because that's what that was yesterday. It was a celebration of Kansas City winning the Super Bowl, and let them celebrate. And it takes a few of these people that have obviously a lot of problems or a lot of grudges. They're not normal people. And unfortunately, there are too many of those around this country right now that you really have to be nervous about. And, the status quo as far as guns, I don't think it's going to work.
Speaking of that too, I saw Albert Breer from Monday Morning Quarterback also said that some of the players, Blaine Gabbert, Trey Smith, Austin Ryder, all were unbelievable calming panicked kids because there were 9 kids who were injured in this. Trey Smith even went up to one upset kid, gave him the WWE title belt, and sat with him until he calmed down for a bit too. So,
yeah, I mean, those people, you see their public aura, but when it comes to these sorts of things, these are real people, and they do what they need to do to help out in their community. And kudos to them, because it was a great celebration ahead of time. Travis Kelce looked like he was feeling no pain.
Yeah.
But then to have something like this absolutely destroy the day. There's no other way to say it. To destroy the day. And they've got 3 guys in custody, and hope the real story will come out about who they were, what they were trying to do, why they wanted to do this, or why they did what they did. We don't know the whole story yet, but when it comes out, I don't know if they're guilty. They should be hung from a yardarm someplace. It's just sad story.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the video too, but shout out to some of the other fans there. There's a couple guys who tackled one of the guys over there too, and held them down till police were able to get over there too.
Yeah, and
so.
the guy, the way he said, get him. He's one of the guys. Just so he tackled him. He saw, what did he say? He saw a gun fall out of the guy's shirt or sleeve or something. And he says, oh, wow, what did I get into? But that's the way we are. You react in a time of need and worry about the consequences to you later on. It's just the way it is. I mean, you can go all the way back to 9/11, out in Pennsylvania, that airplane going to fly into the White House. They took it down. They gave it their all.
Yeah.
The one thing about it, there are so many more good people than there are these nut jobs in this country that, you have hope for the future, but there are so many that are trying to disrupt our way of life, and we just can't let them do it.
Yep. All right. So, well, should we move on to maybe something a little bit more positive?
Yeah,
here
hopefully this will be resolved and they'll get the whole story out about what motivated these guys to do this, and the good things will come out. But yeah, football is over, unfortunately. What a way to end the football season.
Right. Yeah. Baseball season, though, getting closer and closer to returning your pitchers and catchers reporting over there. So maybe starting to get that little bit of a feel there. I know with the weather over here, kind of
the weather in
bit.
Arizona and Florida hasn't been all that good this
Right.
winter either. So hopefully it's turning for them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Brewers, sounds like almost every single player even showed up early. Position players don't have to come until next week and such. But definitely some enthusiasm. Got some youngsters there that are probably excited to get their careers going because they know they got a shot to make a team, but also be an impact player for this team this year. Pat Murphy, new manager, Ricky Weeks. So you got some guys over there that are definitely excited to get going and hit the ground running. We were talking a little bit earlier, what's kind of a storyline, or who are you going to be paying attention to, or what are you going to be following along in this upcoming season? Brewers.com. Adam McCulvey over there has got 3 key storylines heading into Brewers spring training. His top 3 storylines heading into spring training. Number 1, is this a rotation that is a playoff caliber starting rotation as compared to last year? You had Corbin, you had Brandon, Freddie. It started off Eric Lauer, Adrian Hauser, Wade Miley, Aaron Ashby. We know a couple of those guys got hurt and such. This year it's different. Freddie Peralta now is your new number 1 ace. Is he ready to take that step? Is he ready to be that ace of the staff? You got DL Hall coming in as part of that trade package from Corbin Burns. So we'll get back to that here in a second. Number 2, he had, how will Pat Murphy fare in his first season? And number 3, which kids will seize the opportunity, as we just kind of mentioned here a little bit. So,
and that's my number 1. Excuse me, that's my number 1.
I'm
kiddos, excited about these young kids.
Yeah, I know everybody's going to be anxious to see Jackson Cheerio. We've been kind of following him for the next 2 years, but that spotlight got a little bit bigger when you get a bigger contract over there, and inadvertently kind of puts a little bit more pressure on him to all right, the Brewers are telling us fans that you're going to be something special. Let's see if you are going to be special this year. So there'll be some overreactions, whether it's good or bad, if he starts off slow or starts off hot right away in spring training.
Everybody puts pressure on a new manager. Can he carry on the tradition of Craig Counsell? And it's always won lost records, as the Ohio State basketball coach will tell you. It's won and lost records. But I think the real pressure on Murphy, and something that he's going to be doing, and I hope he can do it well, there are a lot of young players. You mentioned Cheerio, but all the guys that were called up last year to find a home for him and find a position for him and put him in the right spot in the batting order. I think, because they've been in the big leagues, but they're still unproven, I think. I think that's probably a pretty good way to put it. A lot of potential. I'm very optimistic these are going to be really, really good Major League Baseball players. So I think that's going to be the pressure on Murphy to find out who plays where and where do they bat in the batting order. I think with these young players, because I think there's a lot of talent here under 25, 26 years old on this team.
I agree. I'm cautiously optimistic and excited to see this. this team hit the field and get going here. I'm preparing for some ups and downs. It's a long baseball season. We know there's going to be stretches where it might be, a little down, but you're also hoping that you're going to see plenty of stuff that gives you optimism. And I think with this division too, it's still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is in the offseason has, moved ahead of the pack, so to speak. Cubs got Craig Counsell, but he doesn't wear a glove or swing a bat.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be good in the dugout. He's proven he's a major league manager without a question. But, he doesn't hit. He doesn't run. He doesn't, pitch. I don't think the Cubs, Bellinger, they haven't finished that with spring training starting. He's not under contract.
Right.
So he could go to anybody's spring training, basically. He's not a Cub until he signs a contract.
Well, and really, if he's back, it's kind of the same team as last year, just with a couple different players.
Yeah.
So
they did have a hot streak,
mm-hmm.
but they did die off at the end again. But, I don't think anybody in the division's really stepped up at all. There might be some sleepers. I think Pittsburgh and Cincinnati are both going to be better. What do we know about St. Louis? They brought some new pitching in, or different pitching, but I don't think there's a Cy Young Award winner on that staff.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. I think this is wide open. I think the Brewers got a real shot at it.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing, too, that, Brewers fans, I'm curious myself, too, and I know it's spring training, and you don't want to take everything you see in spring training, to heart, because a lot of guys, pitchers especially, are working on, pitches and all that. But I think two guys that are going to be under the microscope a little bit are going to be DL Hall and Joey Ortiz, the two guys that came in from the Corbin Burns trade. Because I think a lot of fans, and I get to it, and rightfully so, you trade a guy like Burns, you want to see guys that are going to, you want to see a good return. As you kind of mentioned before, the Josh Hader one, what did you get in return?
Yeah, you don't want to make the same mistake twice.
Exactly. So you want to see these two guys like, oh, okay, there's something there. So I think that's something I'm going to be curious about. And I know it's spring training with Hall. It's always hard to, for pitchers in spring training, don't pay too much attention to, the runs and all that sort of stuff, because they're always working on stuff. But that'll be something that I'm going to be curious to watch too, because you are really hoping those guys can contribute and be impact players right away.
Oh, you have to have an impact player. At least one of them has to be an impact player, because you cannot, as we found out the year they traded Hader, when they traded him, he was an impact player. And what happened? We didn't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the playoffs. Traded Hader, didn't make the playoffs. With Corbin Burns, we've been in the playoffs when he's been pitching. Now, at the end of the year, he wasn't what we hoped he would be at the end of the season and in the playoffs. He didn't come up big against Arizona. He looked horrible. But, we know he's a good pitcher, and he's one of the best in baseball. No question about that. He just hit a rough spot there. But, you could count on him for the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully one of these two guys, hopefully both of them, are going to be difference makers this year, because let's face it, the Brewers need it. They can't afford to go out and, Blake Snell is still out there, the lefty from San Diego, and he's going to end up as a Yankee or somebody like that. Nobody else can afford him.
Mm-hmm.
So the Brewers aren't in that category. So you got to make sure that you didn't make another mistake in the Corbin Burns trade. So I think these two guys are going to get a lot of leash, so to speak, in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that they can, take the bit and go with it.
Yep, I agree. So does it feel like it's getting close to baseball season here a little bit for you?
Well, it did until I got up this morning and walked out. But boy, it's been better around here. We've had more abnormal weather. Arizona and Florida have had abnormal weather, but their weather has been cold and windy. I mean, you watch that golf tournament out in Phoenix last weekend, and, that's not someplace I wished I would have been weather-wise. And same thing with Florida. As I said, I've got family that has places in Florida. They've been down there since November, and as of about a week and a half ago, they've been to the beach twice. And one time they left because the wind was blowing and it was so cold they couldn't stand it. So it has not been good weather in winter baseball country. Even Texas hasn't been all that warm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So hopefully it's getting better, and they can, they can stretch out and get ready for the season.
Speaking of baseball, I wanted to ask you this. This was a topic I had yesterday, but how do I put this politely? You've been around a little bit longer.
I've been around a long time. I've been
So
around a long time.
we because it was Valentine's Day yesterday, so we were kind of having a little fun with like what is the biggest heartbreaking Wisconsin sports story thing to happen. And I'll give you the top ones were out there, but I'm going to add another one on
The
there and
Duke
get your opinion.
Wisconsin basketball
So
championship
that was
game.
a top one.
Yep.
Uh,
Brett Favre losing the Super Bowl to the Denver Broncos.
So it was Favre playing with the Vikings. That was a heartbreak for a lot of people seeing that.
It was
82 World Series. I'll ask
that. I wouldn't call that a heartbreak for me. It was a major disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
But the Super Bowl and the Badgers in the championship game, especially the way that game went from first half to second half, and I beat the drum on this many times, so I won't do it again. But those are the two that really.
Those were actually my top two. The one I want to ask you though, Braves leaving Milwaukee.
Yeah, that was a heartbreak. I mean, you knew it was inevitable because they kept preaching all the time that small markets aren't going to be in baseball anymore, and so you kind of got brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on it, if the Brewers, if we hadn't gotten the Seattle Pilots when we did, because we were out of baseball for, well, it wasn't even a decade. So we were out of Major League Baseball for that period of time. I mean, it was a disappointment, but I wouldn't call it a heartbreak. It was just back then, we were ingrained in the fact that there wasn't money to be made. They couldn't make money in Milwaukee, and on and on and on. And so it was inevitably thought, well, okay, and we'll become Cubs fans is what it amounted to. And I was a Cubs fan for a long time. And then when the Seattle Pilots became the Milwaukee Brewers, all things changed. So, when you lose a Super Bowl, you don't make up for it. You lose a team and they come back, it kind of makes up for it. I mean, I still root for the Braves. It's just Major League Baseball and that ownership group that were just, it's kind of like the guy that bought the Seattle Supersonics, moved them to Oklahoma City. He didn't do that for the interest of the sport. He did that strictly for personal reasons. And that's what the Braves ownership did when they moved that team to Atlanta. And I mean, I still, I was old enough to know 57, the 58, the 1958 World Series was a heartbreak for me. The Braves were ahead of the Yankees 3-1, and they lost that World Series. That was a major heartbreak for me and anybody my age or that was around at that time. That was a major heartbreak because back then baseball was king.
Yeah.
You listened to it. You had your little transistor radio in your pocket, and you had your earpiece going up your sleeve of your shirt and into your hand, and then you held all during class, you had your hand over your ear so the teacher wouldn't see it, but they always knew what you were doing. And it was so much a part of our life. And now it's so much different. It was day games. They played the World Series during the day. So you were in school and Mom didn't let you skip school. But she did make sure the batteries were good in your radio. So, it was a different era, but the 58 Braves losing the World Series to the Yankees after being up 3-1 was a disappointment to me. In 82, the Brewers were up 3-2 and lost. But 3-1, you keep thinking, well, they'll win tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, they'll win tomorrow. Well, they'll win tomorrow. All of a sudden, there are no more tomorrows. And that was a heartbreak for me, much more than the 82 Brewer loss.
So it sounds like when they moved for you, it was more like you were almost getting mentally prepared. Like you knew like it was okay. By all that you heard about, you were already, kind of ready for it.
Yeah, like I said, they kind of indoctrinated you into it that Major League Baseball is going to the bigger cities. The small markets can't keep up. Milwaukee was a small market. They keep preaching Milwaukee was such a small market as far as Major League sports, and Chicago and New York and Los Angeles, and because the Dodgers and the Giants were now in California, and it seemed like it was a changing landscape. the snowball was starting to roll and you couldn't stop it. The avalanche was going and it was going to come down, and it was inevitable. And if, like I said, if we hadn't gotten the Seattle Pilots to become the Milwaukee Brewers less than a decade later, and Bud Selig has to be given just tremendous amounts of credit for never giving up and getting a team back in Milwaukee. That's why it wasn't if we didn't have a team, it would be disastrous. But having a team, it wouldn't be a heartbreak for me. It was a major disappointment. But those other three events to me were more heartbreak.
Yeah, the Badger one too. I mean, not to rehash it all, but for me at that point in time was like, it ain't gonna happen again. And I still kind of feel that way with how college basketball and college sports altogether, with the NIL and transfer portals and all that, I still kind of feel that way, that we're not going to see a Badger team that close.
Yeah, and
the way it went, like you said, in that second half, and that team was just so easy to love.
Oh yeah, just great
the personalities and everything on there. Yeah,
just hardworking Wisconsin Midwest guys. We had from Sheboygan, we had them from La Crosse, and Frank was from Chicago. I mean, they were right from here. We didn't recruit them out of L.A. and Miami and Washington, D.C. They were kids from our area. I think
Nigel is Ohio, but that's Midwest.
But that's Midwest too. Yep. And, you got to look at, can it happen again in Wisconsin? I've talked to people close to the athletic department in Madison. NIL money at Wisconsin, it's almost exclusively football.
I believe
basketball gets nothing. So Greg Gard, if he wants to get any NIL money, he has to go out and recruit it himself. The university isn't giving him NIL money. Football, that's a different story. That's 78,000 people in the stadium, and I just renewed my tickets yesterday, and I'll be getting a part-time job here to help pay the tab. But it's a different animal. Wisconsin basketball has been good, and it's been respectable, but it's really blue collar because, again, as far as the athletic department is concerned, football, and rightly so, is the king. Hockey, and volleyball paying its own way, but, they're getting their own NIL money. Everybody has to get their own NIL money except football. And I know football has to get some, but as far as the athletic department is concerned, if they've got, some of these discretionary funds for NIL, it's going to football. I mean, that's just a fact.
The varsity collective or whatever they created down there to help that. So, especially now too, when you look at with how they're expanding the conference, you look at the teams coming in.
Oh boy,
that's a football. Those are football programs you're bringing in. You're not bringing in those teams like Oregon and USC for basketball. You're bringing them in for football.
Absolutely, and you better be able to compete, and that's why the money is going to football for NIL.
Yep, definitely. But that one, that's one even when I just think about it and still talk about it.
That's probably the most for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Super Bowl loss, I just think they got out-coached. Just tremendously out-coached, in that game. That basketball game, there are a few things, Ryan. I mean, how do you question Bo Ryan with all the success he had? But why he didn't put, and I'm trying to think of the kid's name that was a super defender, why he didn't put him on Braylon Allen, who was a freshman.
Or Grayson Allen.
Yep. And he, he changed the game in the second half, and Bo Ryan had his best defensive player on the bench, and I'm sitting there thinking, and I can't say his name. I think it was a kid from down by Milwaukee that was a tremendous defensive player. Put him in, stop Grayson Allen, and he never did. But there were other extenuating circumstances that, as far as the officiating is concerned, and why it was different in the second half than the first half, still up for debate. But if you question that what we're talking about, get a tape of that game, watch it, watch the first half, watch the second half, and you tell me why the officiating was different.
Oh yeah,
because it was.
I'm on the same side as you on that one.
Man.
It's the only one, and I've after like Packer games that you've been down in that, but that's the only one I think that I can remember where even the next day I don't want to talk to anybody. Like I
No,
was just still down, and
I'm still
frustrated.
frustrated and mad. I'm more mad about it
Mhm.
when, when you've got a team that doesn't foul, the most Wisconsin didn't foul. And all of a sudden in the second half, Duke's going to the free throw line for a 1-and-1 with about 13, 14 minutes left in the game. 5, 6 minutes into the second half, Wisconsin's over the limit. I
Mhm.
mean, it uh, enough said. I
Yeah.
don't.
Didn't mean to bring up bad
It's still
memories.
that is probably it's the most heartbreaking and it's the most frustrating because when you watch that game, it shouldn't have happened.
Mhm. Yep.
I just don't think the better team won.
Mhm.
I think extenuating circumstances were at play.
Yep. I agree. All right, we got to take a quick break, and then we'll finish up the first hour. Maybe the computer doesn't want me to take a break. There we go. Quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes to wrap up the first hour after these quick words. We know Mike's Star Market is your go-to place for quality and flavor when it comes to brats, steaks, burgers, and chicken. And now Mike's is also your go-to place. Well, Mike's is your go-to place when it comes to snack sticks, jerky, but also now freeze-dried candy. There's so many different flavors of freeze-dried candy, you will want to try them all. Whenever you walk into Mike's Star Market, you're likely to find something new to try. It's almost like you're on a scavenger hunt when you head on over there. So whether you're looking for something to make for dinner or to stock up on some different snacks, head on over to Mike's Star Market on the west side of Eau Claire. A couple of texts to get to here. We've got Living a Dream Jeff. Good morning, Dan. Thoughts and prayers going out to KC. G-Man also saying that Bucks will win tonight. Brewers will win the World Series. Spring training will be the defense for the crew, and how they will play is what he's going to watch. Brewers will win 98 games. Also tell Bob thanks for 47 years of work. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Yeah, yesterday was my anniversary. Have you ever done one of those polar plunges?
No, have you?
No,
Okay.
but I've watched my kids do it. And
this might be the year to do it if it's going to be a little warmer, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. Of course, they can't jump off the ice because they can't get that many people on the ice. It's not that thick. They got to be careful.
They do. Just for, because I think it's the Birkebeiner is going to happen, which is cool. It's a shorter course. They're going to shorten it up, so it sounds like they're not finishing in the downtown area over there, but it's going to be a little bit of a shorter course, or they're using their shorter course. But yeah, they're sounds like they're going to try to get this thing going over there.
Well, hopefully last night they got some snow up that way. I talked to some folks. I know that's up around Hayward, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Up around Rhineland or places like that, they got about 6 inches of snow. So hopefully they can get it in. I don't know if they got snowmaking machines or what they've got to make the path of the trail passable, but that's good. That's a great event.
Yes. Yep.
A lot of people around here do it.
Yep. And it's good that they're going to get, because it is the 50th anniversary too. So you want to, 50th anniversary is a big deal in itself. But yep, they're adjusting it a little bit, it sounds like, and that's going to be next week, the 24th. So, but so far so good.
Good. That's good to hear.
That's been something I've been kind of like wondering the last few weeks if they're going to be able to get that going or not. So, but sounds like so far so good. So, all right, coming up next hour, we'll talk a little hoops here. We got the Bucks in action tonight. Last game before the All-Star break. They take on Memphis. Minnesota is also going to be in action tonight too. One more game before the All-Star break coming up this weekend, and then we got that Bucks and Minnesota game next week. That'll be their first game in the quote second half, even though it's 65% through the first half of the season here too. So also don't forget, if you got any questions for Jake Folks for Outdoor Tidbits, we'll catch up with him at about 8:30 this morning. What else do we got here? We've got Brewers stuff here. A couple people saying I'm definitely excited to see the younger players in action. That's going to be the main thing I watch. Second part will be if Freddie Peralta is ready to take over the number one ace role. That's from Ben on the texting line. John on the texting line saying the main thing that I'm going to be following along with spring training this year is going to be the starting pitching staff. A lot of unknowns out there, but definitely cautiously optimistic with the younger players. So
I think you have to be. I mean, anytime you got young players, it's an unknown. It's like the draft. You're drafting young kids. We're people. We're not machines, and everybody reacts differently to different situations. So hopefully these young guys can come along. One thing I missed, and I'm sure you covered it, is signing day. How did the Badger football program rank as far as getting recruits in and who the recruits are or what they went? Because and it's hard now. You got that class, but now it's almost like the transfer portal is more important than recruiting. Because these kids play a year or two and they go someplace else anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the Badger class was ranked or who they got.
Well, for 2024, again, it depends on which service you know. They got different ones, but for Rivals, it was the 19th
in the country.
Oh,
good.
If that's for the 2024 class,
right
now for 2025, they're actually 13th. On there, but it's only about 7 7 players committed so far.
And
So,
again, the bottom line is, what are they going to have for a quarterback?
yep. So, that's yeah, but you're right. I mean, it honestly could change on a dime, right?
Yep. Oh, exactly.
I mean, UCLA already had to switch head coaches because Chip Kelly's going to Ohio State.
Yeah, well,
and
that's
all that.
what's behind that?
I
Sure,
know
well,
he was
you're
kind of on the hot seat over there, but he wanted to jump back in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. But now he's going to Ohio State because Bill O'Brien's going to Boston College to replace the dude who came to Green Bay. So
yeah, and report what he and Ryan Day had coached together and
it was something. Or Ryan Day was the quarterback at some college when Chip was the head coach. Was it at New Hampshire or something like that when he was over there?
I don't
So
know.
they were
I
they
know
were
they had a
familiar from there.
relationship with something, but
Yeah.
yeah, movement is unbelievable as far as these coaches are concerned, and again, that just we're all done now. All the coaching jobs in the NFL are spoken for.
Except for now, the 49ers looking for a new defensive coordinator.
Well, there
So,
was a lot of discussion about that after that Super Bowl.
yep. So 1 year and
And
he's
what
out.
did we say when we talked? And it started out with Chase Young, and with Fred the Warner, the linebacker, and Bosa on the end. That if they could form a triangle and keep Patrick Mahomes in, so they'd win. What happened?
Second
That
half, especially.
triangle broke down, and he made some big runs.
Mm-hmm.
He made some big runs.
Yep. So, all right. Shot clock's going to cut me off here in just a few seconds. Coming up next hour, got a little receive or defer. So if you want to play along with us, or you have any suggestions for some receiver defers, hit us up with those texts, and we'll get to that at about 7:40, 7:45 this morning. We're going to talk some hoops coming up here, just past the top of the hour, just past these news updates. So stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes to kick off the second hour. Second hour kicking off on this Thursday morning of February 15th. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. Coming up at the back end of this hour, we'll do some receive or defer. Next hour, 8:30, we'll catch up with our good buddy Jake Brooks answering your questions, your outdoor questions. So if you have a question for our DNR warden, just hit us up with a text on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line, 715-830-1912. We're going to talk some hoops. The Bucks are back in action tonight as they have a final game, their final game before the All-Star break, coming up this weekend, taking on the Memphis Grizzlies on the road. The Bucks currently the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, but that gap between them and Boston's getting a little bit bigger. 8 games right now. They're also 2 games back from Cleveland, who is sitting in the second spot in the Eastern Conference standings.
And I think that's pretty accurate right now because I think Boston is, the way the Bucks are playing, I think Boston is 8 games better than the Bucks right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucks are not impressive.
It's kind of when you look at this, I guess call it gap in the Eastern Conference. Boston's at 1, Cleveland's 6 back, Milwaukee's 8 back from first place. The Knicks, who were hot, have lost now 4 in a row. They're in the 4th spot, but they're 10 games back from Boston. Philly's in the 5th spot. They're 10.5 back. And then Indiana, the 6th seed. Remember, it's the top 6 that don't have to do that play-in tournament. They're 12.5 back compared to the Western Conference, where it's a little tight at the top there. Minnesota's still holding on. OKC, 1 back. Clippers, 1.5 back. Denver, 2.5 back. Phoenix, 5.5 back. And then you got the Pelicans as a 6th seed, who are just 5.5 back as well. So, a little different story.
Interesting conversation. I'm sure you talked about it. As we got to the trade deadline, things we're finding out now that the Warriors inquired if LeBron was available, and Philadelphia inquired if LeBron was available.
Yeah. I was reading the one with the Warriors yesterday that even Jeannie Buss went to LeBron's camp just to ask if he was interested, that sort of stuff. But he said no. So, I mean, it got to a point where, the Lakers did ask him, is that something that you're interested in?
Yeah, and of course, he's got the right to refuse anything, but I'm sure it would have meant bye-bye Draymond Green from the Warriors.
Yeah, maybe for good.
I know. I think that might have been the major reason the Warriors wanted to do that, to try to, get rid of Draymond Green without saying, just get out of here. We've had enough of you. And that would have been one way to do it. But it didn't happen.
Yep, it didn't. So, but kind of the second half, I know it doesn't match up, but it's kind of the second half after this All-Star break. And that's where I want to see the Bucks now finally start to get something going here, momentum. We got a few games now under, or the Doc Rivers era and that, but you're seeing glimpses of it. Now I want to see it all kind of come together. And this is where you got to start to build that momentum and kind of play that complementary basketball, if you will.
I think also what we need to see is what is the developing relationship between Rivers and Giannis. Because let's face it, Giannis is going to be there. If there's a conflict, Doc is going to be the guy that's gone. Giannis isn't going to be the guy that's gone. So how that relationship develops, and how, I don't know how it's going now. I really don't know, but hopefully it'll be congenial. But that relationship is going to be very important going forward.
Yep, definitely, no doubt about it. So we'll see with what's that tip time over here, Memphis. Oh, that's too small. I can't. 7:30. It's tip time tonight. If you want to catch it on the radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. So, hey, you mentioned a little bit earlier about the waste management. Your thoughts on how now they're going to change things? Because we were having a little fun last Thursday, like dudes dressed up in wedding dresses and Ninja Turtles and all that, and now they might have to hone it back. Well, they are going to hone it back in.
It was getting out of control. And like people have said, for one hole, maybe you can put up with it. But even on that one hole now, the crowd pushed the limit too far. I mean, you can't get that drunk and do some of the things that you've done. You have to respect how golf is played, and you got to give the players their space. And these guys and gals on the 16th hole, we're not doing that. I mean, if it's the guys are okay. They come up and there's cheering and this, that, and the other thing. Don't expect them to be quiet as they hit their shot like they do on other holes and other tournaments. They can do that for one hole. But then they said one time when I was watching a tournament, the announcer said, well, it's spreading out. Now it looks like the 17th hole is going to be a replica of the 16th. And I think that's kind of scared golf leaders. We can't have that kind of rowdiness and disrespect for the game really that much. And so how they're going to do this, obviously they're going to have to limit numbers on the golf course because, on one hole they had 20 or 30,000 people with those bleachers that they set up. So you got 17 other holes where you can put a lot of people, but how they're going to do it, I don't know, but I agree with them. I think it needs to be done because for a few years, our colleague John Murphy has been out to that tournament. That was a few years ago. And he said he got on the 16th hole and he said it was unbelievable. It was fun, but it was unbelievable, noisy, and unlike anything he'd ever seen in golf. And that's probably 10 years ago. And since then it has gotten, out of control is about what they explained this year. And so they do have to kind of tone it down a little bit.
Yep. So they got the Genesis Invitational teeing off today, later this morning, about 9:20 our time.
That's in LA, isn't it?
Yep. Tiger Woods is playing in this one. His first competitive, I guess, PGA sanctioned one since even like the Masters, because he did play in the World Hero, but that's not, considered part of the PGA Tour. But this is his first start in an official PGA tournament in more than 10 months. It will be his first competitive rounds since he finished 18th in a 20-man field in the Hero World Challenge, an unofficial event, back in December. Woods' most recent start in an official PGA tournament came at the Masters in April. And why it took so long, because in April 19th, he underwent fusion surgery to address post-traumatic arthritis he suffered in that car wreck. So 48 years old, back playing in a PGA tournament. We got the Masters already, promos in a couple months and such. What should be the expectations for Tiger in this tournament, and I guess maybe for this year?
Make a cut.
Yeah.
I don't think, his drive is to win one more. And then he's the leader all time of tournaments won. He and Sam Snead are tied now. So he wants one more. One more tournament.
Do you think he will get that if you had to place a futures bet on it? Do you think he'll win one more tournament?
No.
No.
I think he's done. I hope not, but I think he is done. If I was to bet, I'd say no.
He might have to go to, let's face it, a inferior PGA Tour tournament if he wants to just break that. You know what I mean? Like a field that doesn't have Scotty Scheffler or anything like that. Some of the top players in the game.
And I'm sure some of those tournaments would bend over backwards to have Tiger there, because what a difference it would make in the crowd.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he is the difference maker. I mean, you look at in the history of sports, you look at basketball, the difference maker, Michael Jordan. LeBron when he was younger, but LeBron's not a draw now, I don't think.
Yeah. Maybe for diehards, but
but LeBron's not. Baseball, there have been so many that you wanted to see because there's so many, many, many great players. Golf, Jack Nicklaus, in my era anyway, my lifetime, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer. Gary Player was great, but he wasn't one of those guys that you'd beat down the door to go see.
Right.
Nicklaus and Palmer. Tiger Woods is over and above all of them. He did things that those guys couldn't even do as great as they were. And so I hope he gets it. And he probably would if he wouldn't get behind the wheel of a car. I mean, he's had two major problems, both of them related to the car after other extenuating circumstances. But don't get as much money as he's got. Hire a driver. Why is he driving his own car?
His plan is to play in a tournament per month, at least one
I hope so.
per month, including the players in March. That's his plan. Obviously, things could change how he feels coming out of this tournament.
And
Yeah,
I'm
you know.
telling you, the PGA needs him because really and truly, on either tour, there's nobody that, you got to beat down the doors to go watch play. There aren't. I don't care. Liv's got, who they've got now, and the PGA Tour, and I'll save it for receiver to fur.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as the PGA Tour is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those who like I love golf. I played a ton. It's different though watching it on TV with Tiger and without Tiger.
Oh, no
It's
question.
it's facts are facts. I'll be honest with you. I will struggle to sit down and watch like a whole day's worth if Tiger's not in it. Even if he's not even in contention, I still want to watch Tiger.
And I'll watch the majors.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because the courses are so spectacular all the time. The Masters is a given, but where they play the majors, those courses are so challenging. I'll watch these guys play those. But otherwise, like this Waste Management Open last week, I watched it a little bit just to watch the 16th hole.
Mm-hmm.
But then it got so out of control.
Did you? You've seen Tiger play, but did you see him play at his peak in person?
Yep.
You did. Okay. So I don't know if this would be a question for you, but like if there was an athlete you could see play at their peak in person, like who would that be? Like I never got to see Jordan in
I didn't
person.
either. I never did either.
Yeah, and I've never got to see Tiger in person.
You've never seen Tiger play golf?
Not in person. No.
Oh, wow.
So that to me is like that's where I'm like, okay, you've already seen that. So
yeah, I've had the good fortune to follow Tiger many times, really. And and he's over at Hazeltine here in the Twin Cities for a couple tournaments and Kohler and around, and I've seen him in other parts at the Tournament of Champions and in Hawaii and this, that, and the other thing. So I've been fortunate to watch him, and he is different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a different. The ball comes off his club different.
Mm-hmm.
At least it did back then. I don't think we could say that probably now. But and I never saw Jordan play live.
Mm-hmm. That's like
to my regret.
That's where like if I could go back, like who's the one athlete, and I'll open it up to everybody out there. If you could, like the one that you could go back and see, in their prime in person, who would that be? Like I would love to go see Muhammad Ali fight, in person.
Yeah, I never saw him in person, but I remember when he was coming up. At that time, before we had all the streaming services and this, that, and the other thing, they used to have it. I remember going in Madison, the Dane County Coliseum, where the Badgers used to play hockey down there, and they'd have a big screen for the Ali Joe Frazier fights. I mean, the screen was like an outdoor theater screen, and we went in there for $5. And you'd sit there, and it was like being live. He was so big.
Yeah.
And I never did see him, not live, but with that, it's almost like it was live.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to have seen Muhammad Ali just for the fanfare, the whole thing
right.
that he brought to the sport.
Yep, exactly. C-Bomb saying I would have loved to have seen Barry Sanders in person. Pete Rose, Wayne Gretzky, Mike Tyson. Those are his four over there.
Pete Rose, I saw quite a few times. Never saw Gretzky or Tyson. I if you're a boxing fan, yeah, I'm not a big boxing fan, but and who was the first one he said?
Barry Sanders in person.
I saw Barry Sanders in person over at Lambeau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a special player too.
Tiger and Jordan are usually my top two, though.
Oh, absolutely. And I can check one of them off, but not the other.
Yeah, I would just love to, like you said, kind of be behind Tiger and watch one of his shots. 96 Tiger, 97, 98, 2000 Tiger, whatever it may be.
But it was like watching Jack Nicklaus one time. We were over in Detroit at the PGA tournament, and can't say the name of the club right now, but at that time the crowds weren't that big or whatever. I don't know, but he hit a ball on the edge. He was about 10 feet away from the ropes, and we were standing there about as far away as from you and I are right now. and it was a par 5, and he had like 270 some yards to the green, and he pulled out a 2-iron. Nobody carries a 2-iron, and he pulled out a 2-iron, and he because somebody asked his caddy at that time was what was it, the fellow with a big afro hairdo, but it was with him for a long time, and somebody said, "What's he hitting?" And he held up 2 fingers, and or after he hit it, he said, "What was that club?" It was a 2-iron, and he hit that thing on a line. It went up. I bet it didn't go 30 feet in the air, and it was just like a rocket, and it landed on the green, and 15, 20 feet from the hole. And I remember watching the replay later that night. One of the announcers had said, "He hit a 2-iron," he said. It's not even God can hit a 2-iron. And Nicholas hit a 2-iron. Just was a rocket shot.
Man.
I mean, those, some of those athletes in different sports were just different.
Mm-hmm.
Just different. Yep. Mentally, physically, they were just different. They just knew it. I mean, that shot was the most unbelievable golf shot I've ever seen in my life.
Golly, I would have loved to have seen that.
Oh
man!
And he's standing just straight out from where I was, and he did that waggle, and all of a sudden he hit it, and shoo, away it goes.
Man.
And then it made it even more fun watching the highlights later that night on
Absolutely.
TV. Not even God can hit a 2-iron, and Nicholas put it 20 feet from the pin.
Wow. Surveyor said, even though I'm not a Bears fan, I would love to have seen Sweetness, Walter Payton, in person too.
I've seen him.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Sweetness. He was a great player, but really, as great as he was, I think Barry Sanders was more fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
He was just unbelievable.
The stopping on a dime and changing direction. It's just, I mean, when you mention the name Barry Sanders, I think a lot of us just instantly, they go to highlight reels that you could play in your head. Like the Patriots one's already playing in my head.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, as great as Walter Payton was, I'd still rather watch Barry Sanders.
Mm-hmm. If you want to play along with us, you can. Hit us up with a text, 715-830-1912.
I did get a chance. I was lucky. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is my age. Yeah. So I saw Kareem play a lot of basketball when he was the Bucks, because back then the Bucks would come to Madison and play at the Fieldhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Played some playoff games there, and they'd even play at the Dane County Coliseum. And once they got Kareem and Oscar, they got, kind of like the Packers. We're not playing in Milwaukee anymore, and we're not playing in Madison anymore, but did get to see him probably 8-10 times.
Mm-hmm. That's even like one thing, like, I don't, if he's in a tournament still, and I know he's not at his peak or his prime, if Tiger's around here, I'd love to go still, just to say one time.
Absolutely.
Just to see it in person.
And the thing is, you got to be smart about it. You don't want to follow him around.
Mm-hmm.
You want to find out, like when we were over at in the Twin Cities at Hazeltine, we didn't go to the first tee. We went to like the 4th hole because it was on the other end of the course, and there was nobody there. Crowd would follow him along the sides, but then we were standing there right next to the green, right on the ropes, and so you got real close to him. We always stood where the walkway was, where they go from the green to the next tee. So he was 2 feet away from us,
right?
And then you'd go down another 2 or 3 holes to get ahead of him. So you watch a lot of his golf, but don't watch every hole. Just pick out 5 or 6 holes and stay ahead of him, and it's you really get up close that way.
That's a good idea. So come play in Minnesota, Tiger, if you're listening right now. There.
Well, that's one of the problems with the PGA right now, with the way they've reconfigured the tournament schedule. The PGA is now in May.
Mm-hmm.
We lose out on an August tournament at Hazeltine, at Kohler, at some of the other Midwestern venues where these guys come. You can have a big tournament, but if it's not a major, you're not going to draw a Tiger.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Another pick, Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, would have been so fun, from Ryan.
Saw those guys. Saw both of those guys. Saw Sammy Sosa in Chicago hit 60 or so. We took a bus from here, and we had tickets. Well, Marty Green, our old buddy, and we got down there, and We saw him hit either 60, 61 at Wrigley
Ooh,
Field.
nice.
Yeah, and
That's the thing too. Like with those guys, I'd want to like see them hit a home run.
oh yeah,
not go 0 for 4 or anything like
saw
that.
Mark McGuire hit a home run. I don't remember what number it was, but
Mhm.
in St. Louis, down there at that ballpark, Busch Stadium, and so I had a chance to see both baseball players, great baseball players, who had a chance to see.
See Griffey.
Yep, yep, I did see Ken Griffey Jr. To me, and we've talked about this before,
Yep.
who without injuries probably would have been considered one of the top 2 or 3 of all time.
I agree. All right, let's take a quick break here. Keep your picks coming, though. Go down a little memory lane here, if you will. Quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Believe it or not, baseball season is around the corner. Spring training, pitchers and catchers reporting. Players are getting ready for another long baseball season this summer. But spring training doesn't just have to be for baseball players, it can be for you as well. Tired of those aches and pains, and you've been holding off on going to see someone for help? Not anymore. Spring on into Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and start your spring training so you're ready for an awesome summer. At Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, you will receive surpassed care delivered with compassion and respect. So get ready to get back into the game. Make your appointment by visiting cvosm.com to get started. A question from somebody said, if you could pick between going to a Super Bowl where the Packers are playing or Tiger at the Masters, what would it be? For me, it might surprise people. I'd pick Masters and Tiger.
10 or 15 years ago.
I don't know to me, it might not matter.
Well,
for the reason of this,
make sure you get a Thursday or Friday ticket because I don't think you'd make
no,
the cut.
for the call it lame reason, but for the reason is I won't be heartbroken after, just in case. I hate to have that mindset, but just I wouldn't be heartbroken either way, just because I got to go to the Masters.
I want to, and I agree with you. I've seen Tiger play. You haven't, so I understand where you're coming from. But I want to go to the Masters just to see it. And like I said before, I'm seriously thinking about buying tickets for that that women's amateur that they play there, just so I could get on the course and walk the course and then watch the Masters on TV. Because boy, once you go to a golf course and watch, and they say that, and a lot of people around here that are listening, I know have been to Augusta, and they know the slope and the ups and downs on that golf course. And you don't get that third dimension on TV. But I'd love to do that. Just, tickets to the Masters are out of this world, but for that women's, I don't know how many tickets they sell for that women's amateur, but I'd like to do that just to be able to walk the course and find out for myself how much up and down it is.
And see the azaleas fully in bloom.
Yeah, and you watch and you look at that where the 12th green is. Then they go off the 12th green around the corner and up the alley for the 13th tee, and then they come down that alley, that chute, and they keep moving that 13th tee back again. I'd like to, see the dimensions of that. It really is, and for any golf course, it really is fun to be on the golf course. I was at the Tournament of Champions at Kapalua and on Maui in January, and, you watch it on TV, and it's a completely different layout. I mean, when you're standing there on the golf course and see these guys and side hills and how hilly. I mean, that is a long uphill walk on that golf course. And they say the Masters is about like that. And so I'd like to be on the golf course more than see Tiger, because like I said, I've seen Tiger in his prime and you haven't, so I can understand that. But that's my ambition is to get on the course.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Before we do some receiver defer coming up here, according to going back to baseball here really quick, Major League Baseball, according to ESPN, ESPN's Jesse Rogers, intends to ask umpires to, quote, strictly enforce the obstruction rule around the bases this season. Now, obstruction is already a part of the rule book, but Jesse Rogers from ESPN highlighted two common infractions that take place at second and third base in particular. This is from the report. The enhanced enforcement of the rule, which is already in the books, will mostly impact plays around second and third base. The most common infraction is when a middle infielder puts his lower leg on the ground to block the runner's path to second, sometimes leading to hand or ankle injuries depending on how a runner slides. A common infraction at third base involves an infielder moving up the line to block a runner's path as he receives the ball from an outfielder. Here's where it might get a little interesting. In the event that the umpire deems a base runner has been obstructed by a fielder, that runner will be ruled safe, but such a play would not be reviewable. That might be the interesting one over there too. So not reviewable.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and baseball aficionados in the audience that have been following this closer than I have over the past few years, why don't they just make the rule like the home plate rule? If you don't have the
The
ball, you
catcher's
can't block the
interference.
plate.
Yeah.
If you don't have the ball, you can't block the plate. If you don't have the ball, you can't put your leg in front of second base or third base. Why don't they just make the rule the same for every base?
And maybe that's what they're referring to by enforcing that more,
Well,
because it
maybe
was
that
in
is.
there, and
Because
maybe
they
just
have enforced the home plate rule.
Yep. So maybe that's kind of where they're going at with this one. Which, I always get nervous too. We've played baseball. We've always kind of slid, and whether you've been one that's gotten slid into or you slid, it hurts. Look, I've seen guys.
I was a catcher.
Yeah, I've seen. Well, I haven't seen it, but I heard about it after I got there. Like a buddy of mine, I remember playing in a tournament, came back and his shirt was all bloody. I'm like, dude, what happened? And guy slid in a second, but the other guy's foot was there, ankle, and he was holding that guy's ankle together until help got there. It's stuff like that. It's kind of creepy, but I get it. They're trying to do that for, I think, safety too at that point in time. But I do wonder with the non-reviewable one, I think you're going to have instances this year where might be close calls and all that stuff.
Well, some guys like Ty Cobb and Pete Rose couldn't play in this day and age because they used to sharpen their spikes and go with their spikes up, and so they're trying to take the injury out of the game. But I just think if they enforce it all like they do home plates rule, enough said. Don't make a big deal out of it.
Right. Yep.
Just tell them this is how it's going to be enforced.
So be something.
Although it's been traditional to second base to put your foot on the base or leg or whatever and make them go around. But but they can't do it at home. Why should you be able to do it at second?
Right. So we'll see if that. I don't think it'll be too much of a big deal or anything like that.
I don't think
at this point in time, but I'm sure there'll probably be certain instances throughout this season where it's like, oh, he missed that one. That clearly wasn't, blocking or anything like that. At what point in time in sport has there been a perfect season in calls?
Oh, not going to happen. Never is going to happen. You just hope that, it doesn't change a game. Because people say, well, an official can't change the outcome of a game. And I've never agreed with that.
Yep. How about this really quick? MLB.com, the clubs that made sneaky great offseason moves. Sneaky great offseason moves. This article, we asked a number of front office executives which teams had strong, quote, under the radar off seasons. And based on the responses, the defending NL champions might be ready to win their first NL title since 2011. Arizona received 5 votes, one of only 3 teams to draw multiple mentions, along with Kansas City and Milwaukee.
Good.
For Milwaukee, we've got the Brewers, who were swept by the Diamondbacks in the wild card round last fall, received 3 mentions from executives, even after trading Corbin Burnes to the Orioles. Milwaukee acquired Jake Bauers from the Yankees, then brought back Wade Miley. Last month, the Brewers added the power bat that they had been seeking, Rhys Hoskins. The move that some believe will pay off the most was Milwaukee's decision to give Jackson Chourio that contract, the largest in history for a player with no service time. Quote, if Chourio is as good as everybody thinks he's going to be, this could be the contract that keeps the Brewers in contention into the next decade, an American League exec said. It's tough to have to trade Burnes, but Brewers general manager Matt Arnold got some good, young, controllable talent back. Another National League executive said, quote, they'll still be a factor in the NL Central even without Burnes. That's a good team. Hoskins should help that lineup if he's healthy. So,
good to hear.
Got some executives across baseball.
Well, I think as you and I talked right off the top this morning, we're excited about this team. The young talent coming in, Chourio obviously a big part of that, and some of the arms that they've got. No, they don't have Corbin Burnes. They don't have Woodruff. But I think there are some arms there that are going to be very satisfactory. And the bullpen, Williams in the bullpen, I think there's a lot of things to be optimistic about.
Yeah. So those are Major League Baseball executives with that mindset. So Brewers fans, maybe those who were a little pessimistic, are you starting maybe to after the Corbin Burnes one, starting to be like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Kind of maybe a little bit more optimism or such, but good stuff to hear there, no doubt about it. So I like it. Let's do a little receiver defer. We got to take a quick break, and then we'll finish up the second hour with some receive, or defer. Last call if you have any and you want to play with us, play along with us. Hit us up with that text, 715-830-1912. Quick break, and we'll be back to finish up the second hour after these quick words. Backyard Dreams has partnered up with Mycon Cinemas to help bring you spring kids movies. 11 a.m. showtimes at the Mycon theaters in the Oakwood Mall there. This will begin starting February 24th. So the first movie on the docket going to be Little Giants over there, February 24th through the 25th. Again, 11 a.m. showtimes, $3 admission, special $2 popcorn, $2 sodas. We're going to be helping out some local organizations with some of the proceeds over there too. So you can check out the full lineup at our website, sportstalk1051.com. Just click on the Fan Cave tab over there. Got Field of Dreams included on this list, Space Jam as well. The OG, the original Bad News Bears with Walter Matthau was on there too. So, all right, little receive or defer time. You had teased one a little bit earlier that you were saving it, so we'll let you have the honors.
Well, it has to do with golf and talking about Tiger, and if he's playing, you're going to go even if he's not what he used to be. And I was thinking, and I'm not demeaning these guys at all, but because I respect their ability to play golf, but they are who they are. Receiver defer, guys like Rory and Scotty Scheffler are not big enough draws for PGA golf tournaments anymore.
For like casual golf fans, maybe I would receive that,
because Liv is taking some players away, and I think Scheffler's still on the up. I don't know if Rory's on the up anymore or not. Has he won his last major? I mean, he, as great a player as he is, and as great an ambassador he is for golf, and as great a guy as he is, that's why I say I wouldn't say anything demeaning about him at all. But is he past his prime as far as winning majors? I think we're all shocked he hasn't won more than he has.
I mean, he's been in contention, it seems like, in almost every one the last couple of years here, but then, the final round or whatever around here, it's kind of taken him out of that. He's been a popular pick the last couple of years when we get to those major picks, but I'll be honest, it's not a draw for me.
No, not for me either. I mean, I've seen him, been fortunate enough to see him play a lot of golf, but again, I just don't think he's a draw. Receiver defer to baseball starting now. I was thinking about this and the Brewers' talent coming in, these young guys to get exposure. Receiver defer, Christian Yelich should be the designated hitter every time they face a right-handed starter.
Ooh, you put that in there. The wild card in this one, it's kind of weird. I don't know if something's going on. The Gary Sanchez signing isn't official yet.
Oh, it's not?
It's not official yet.
Why?
We don't know yet. I was reading a little bit yesterday, not quite sure, maybe still going over some of the financials or what, but I thought it was interesting. So when they put up a graphic of all the pitchers and catchers, Sanchez wasn't on there.
I was going to say pitchers and catchers are reporting.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so are they just kind of viewing him mostly as a DH? But then I found out like deal's not official yet. They're still kind of talking. So I don't know if something popped up, maybe another team with a better offer. I don't know. That kind of throws a wrench into the whole thing. I know the Brewers and Pat Murphy, he mentioned this last week that they're going to have a revolving DH over there, but I think you're going to see Yelich DH more than what he did last year for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, he hadn't been the player he was a few years ago, no question about that. But what back injury and ankles and problems and this, that, and the other thing, take some of the wear and tear off him in the field, maybe his offense would be a little bit better. And I just think, and it gives a chance to get another left-handed bat in the lineup against right-handed starters. I just don't know if they're considering it, but I sure would.
Yeah, especially, I mean, right now it doesn't look like they're going to be moving on from one of their young outfielders.
No.
They got plenty of depth over there.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the things too I think I'll be curious about and to kind of follow along in spring training is who is going to be those top 3 or 4 outfielders. I mean, you got Jackson Chourio. I know they said he's not a lock to be opening day. Sal Frelick, Garrett Mitchell, Joey Weimer. You got 4 young guys there. Then if you add in Christian Yelich, as a spot starter, regular starter, whatever you want to term it, who are going to be those next 3 that battle it out over there?
And I think Joey Weimer might be the sleeper in the whole thing. I mean, he can go get it in the outfield, and he showed signs very few and far between, but a few that
He's got some power.
he can, he can hit it, and I think if he gets a little bit more offensive minded, I think he's a real wild card there.
I feel like I kind of agree with you. I feel like the on man out eventually is going to be Garrett Mitchell. I feel
As
like
good as he is, and as much as he's rated,
I mean, because Jackson ain't going anywhere. I feel like Sal Frelick, I just like he's a little bit more better at on base and contact and that. And then if Weimer, I think, displays a little bit more consistency with the power, we know he's got a heck of an arm in right field. He's like your typical right fielder, but he can play center field because of the speed there too.
Oh boy,
but,
he goes and gets it in center field.
So is Garrett Mitchell receiver defer the odd man out?
The only problem with that, because I think he's going to be really a good player, Mitchell. But what do you do with him?
Right.
You can't trade him for a high-profile player because you can bring that high-profile player in. You can't afford to pay him. So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation with Garrett Mitchell. He becomes a star, and it's an overflow in the outfield. So you try and trade him, but who do you trade him for? Because, you're not going to trade to get Corbin Burns back because you can't afford to pay those kind of guys.
Right.
So, it's a nice problem to have, but it's still a problem.
It's kind of like
potentially.
Yeah, it's like one of those outfielders too, the whole DH thing. He's like, we'll put them at DH, but you're kind of taking away what they do really well right now, and that's their speed and defense in the outfield there. I mean, all those guys that we just mentioned, Cheerio, Frelick, Mitchell, and Weimer, all got speed up the what and cover a lot of ground.
Go get it. You bet.
So it's like you don't want to just put them at a DH because then you're taking away what they do really well. So
you really do. But and that's why Yelich is a good outfielder, but I think these young guys are on the brink of being great outfielders. And Yelich might have been a great outfielder a while ago, but I think he's, more than adequate, above average still. But I wouldn't call him a great outfielder anymore.
We had
smart.
We had yesterday one of the heartbreaks. One of the questions was one of the heartbreaks. Somebody did mention when Christian Yelich fractured his knee, hasn't been the same player since.
No, that's right. And that's why I say if you put him at DH against every right-hander, it takes a lot of pressure off that knee.
I was reading here too, because he already got projecting the opening day roster. One name that we haven't mentioned in this thing is Bryce Terang, and the writer here does not have Bryce Terang making the opening day roster. Joey Ortiz, one of the talented players coming in, is projected to be the second baseman. Terang, we know defensively, but again, it was the offense, right? With last year. So I think that does change if Willie Adames ends up getting traded anytime soon.
Yeah, that's still a possibility, of course, anytime.
For their outfielders, this is why I looked it up. For the outfielders, the odd man out that they have in here is Weimer. They got Yelich, Jackson, Sal Frelick, and Garrett Mitchell over there. So,
and that's why I'd like to see Yelich do more DHing.
Right.
Now, whether or not he would go along with that or be happy with that or say, get me out of here type of situation, but he's pushing 30 years old now. And
he's over 30, I think.
Is he over 30 years old? I don't know how old he is, but I thought he was right around 30 or whatever. But he's not in the physical shape he was when the Brewers got him. I mean, life goes on, and that's a lot of pounding.
Yeah, he's 32.
Oh, he is 32. So anyway.
Yeah. And I know for anybody who's asked, they've already said no, it's not. He's not going to be playing first base. They've already come out and said that multiple times. So you got any more receiver to first?
I do, and this is just something I was thinking about as I was kind of watching it as we get closer and further into spring. Receiver to fur. The college softball World Series with the young ladies is more fun to watch than the college baseball World Series with the guys down in Omaha versus Oklahoma City with the young ladies softball. More fun, exciting. I don't know how you want to say it.
I think you kind of say
like
that.
Both.
I do too. But I think you kind of say recency softball's kind of been more entertaining.
Yeah, it really has been. This Oklahoma team, they haven't lost a game, and
the Badgers got a good team down there too.
Yeah, I think it's women's softball is a lot of fun to watch. I'm glad they put it back in the Olympics because it wasn't right not to have college, not to have women's softball in the Olympic Games.
Right. Yeah. Because Badgers, did I see because their season's already underway. Did I see they're off to a 4-1 start right now? Let me see if I can double
Wow,
check
I
that.
don't know where they're practicing. Of course, maybe they can go in the shell down at Madison, but they can't do it outside.
They might be down south here. Where's Clearwater, Florida? It looks like they're up next in Clearwater, Florida. Yeah. Wisconsin faces off 4 ranked teams in Clearwater starting a doubleheader. Number 4, Georgia, number 18, Kentucky today. So it
Oh,
sounds
good.
like. So,
And then that won't be on TV. Well, maybe ESPN or somebody will pick it up. I'll have to look.
ESPN Plus, it looks like, or
Uh,
the SEC network since they're playing.
yeah, yeah,
Those guys says here. This is according to UWBadgers.com
yeah.
over there. But
Women's softball is fun to watch, and boy,
mhm.
I'll tell you, there's some young ladies that can bring it. That can, they're just good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I know Brandon's kind of hinted at this a little bit here, but you want to talk a little bit about softball? Pay attention to Chippewa Falls this year.
Every year, Chippewa
Well, they've
Falls
got
is in the mix.
a freshman coming in, talking pitching 60s, low 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she's a freshman this spring.
Yep.
Yeah, they're getting more.
Mm-hmm.
What's nice is a lot of these older guys that played fast pitch their whole life have daughters, and they're teaching them how to pitch because that's where the money is
Mm-hmm.
for young ladies
Yep.
and the glory.
Badgers are 4-1, and they've got Georgia and Kentucky today, and then Oklahoma State after that, who's ranked number 6. So we'll see how good test right there. All right, we'll be back after these quick news updates. Final hour kicking off on this Thursday morning. Big thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, you're all off to a fantastic start this morning. Coming up at the bottom end of the hour, we'll catch up with Mr. Jake Bulks, Conservation Warden for the state of Wisconsin. Last call for any questions that you may want Jake to help you answer. We'll get those over to him. So hit us up with a text on that. Pitchers and catchers have reported baseball season right around the corner here. What are some of the storylines that you will be following along with this upcoming baseball season? We've thrown out a few of them for the Brew Crew, but if you got any, let us know.
Justice going out there this year?
He is.
Good.
He is. I think in the beginning of March. Don't quote me though, but he is going out over there for spring. Spring training game, by the way, the 24th already. So
yeah, it doesn't take long, but it's fun to watch the spring training games because they're playing these games and there are guys playing catch out along the wall and the outfielder running on the track around the outfield. It's very casual.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have not done it, but I would like to do it maybe when Hudson gets a little bit older and take him out over there. That. So that would be a lot of fun. So, but yeah, I think it's beginning of March. I'll have to double check, but he is going out there.
I haven't seen the schedule yet, but I don't know if Major League Baseball has learned that you don't schedule early April games in Minneapolis or some of these outdoor cities. But
well, the Brewers do play the Twins for their second series
in Minneapolis,
in Milwaukee. So
that's a different world.
Yep. They do play. They'd go over to Minneapolis. It's actually finally a Saturday, Sunday. It's in July.
Really?
It's in July.
Well, that'll be a big crowd.
Yeah, and it's actually my birthday weekend, so I might have to go over there and check that one out. So take Hutchie.
And that's a beautiful stadium that they have over there. It's just that, man, I just keep thinking of. I was watching the weather last year when the playoffs were on, and if the Twins were still in it, it was unplayable.
Mm-hmm.
It was so cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they weren't there, but if they had to play outdoor baseball in Minnesota, it's unplayable.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I know this is a little bit old too, but there's some talk that maybe the Browns' new stadium is going to have a dome.
Cleveland Browns.
Wow. What about that? Looking for more income, and you got to do that by hosting events where you have to have a dome, right?
Yeah,
with the roof on the stadium.
Yeah.
But I know that was kind of something that was thrown out there the other day, or was it a few days ago or such? So we'll see if there's actually gonna happen or anything like that. So
I was over there one time at it's right along the old Metropolitan Stadium, a huge stadium. I mean, just huge, and it was like being in a big cavern. And they need I don't think they still play in that stadium, but Dome Stadium in Cleveland along Lake Erie would be pretty nice.
Yeah. So I know there are some people who want a dome over Lambeau.
No. I
agree with you. Some do, though.
Yeah, some do. Cleveland's kind of in between. In Ohio, they don't, Green Bay is known for weather.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland, you don't know for the weather. I mean, it's kind of in between. It can get cold, but in Green Bay, it's going to get cold.
Right.
So I don't know. No, I don't.
I don't think that deters Packers fans from going
no,
to.
I don't think, or fans from other teams for coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll come in. You'll see a lot of fans from other teams. It's a bucket list, and I just got out my bib overalls and my insulated underwear, and I'm going to Lambeau.
Yep. Would you like to see every baseball stadium have a dome, though?
No.
No?
No.
No. Not like Wrigley?
No. I mean, they could use a dome, but Chicago, Chicago is really a...
Are there some where it's just like, you can't mess with history?
Oh, St. Louis, Yankees, you just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Well, Milwaukee doesn't have... We don't have baseball history like those other teams.
No. I agree.
The Cubs, Wrigley Field, when the lights go on at Wrigley Field,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Statler Brothers had to change their song.
That's a name I have not heard in a long time. Probably my grandma's big fans of the Statler Brothers.
Yeah,
so.
I'll be home to you or something like that when the lights go on at Wrigley Field, and a few other things that nobody ever thought would change.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So no, I was actually surprised when I saw a couple people talking about they want a dome over Lambeau. I'm like, ooh, no, I don't want that.
No
way, man. I don't want that.
That completely changes the aura of Lambeau Field.
I agree. I completely
The
agree.
frozen tundra is no more.
Mhm.
Would be no more.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can't. I can't fathom that. I can't picture that, and I don't want that. I will bundle up as much as I can and scrunch in and stand the whole. I've stood the whole time.
Oh yeah, can you imagine going to Lambeau Field with a dome in December and the temperature outside is 0, and you're outside tailgating with all kinds of clothes on? Oh, let's go to the game, and you
Yeah.
strip down to your pair of shorts or something and go
Mhm.
into the ball game. No, I don't think that would work in
Nope.
Lambeau Field.
No, thank you. I don't want
No,
to see that.
I
So
don't think you'll ever see that.
I hope. Yeah, I don't think so
I
either.
think it'd be like, what do you think would be first, a dome or a name change?
Name change.
I don't think either one of them is going to
No.
happen, but I think the name.
I would
change.
say a name change on the level of Lambeau Field presented by, or something like
Yeah, I
that.
don't think the name
Yeah.
Lambeau would ever go away. But
Nope. Or so and so stadium at Lambeau Field, or some weird thing
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, name change before no.
I don't think they
But neither's
would
happening.
ever do that. I don't think so either.
Nope. Neither one of those is happening. But that would, if I had to pick between the two, that would be the first one. There's
Yeah,
no
I
way.
just don't think the public would be up for naming the stadium, Alltel Stadium or Lambeau Field at Alltel Stadium. I don't know what they would name it, but I don't think the public would stand for that.
Yep. Speaking of stadiums and arenas and such, I know we mentioned it at the top there, but Blue Golds, the women's team, played their last game at Zone Arena last night. Blue Golds, they weren't able to pick up the win against Stevens Point. Men's team did beat Point, but their last game at Zorn, potentially regular season game, will be this Saturday. So Blue Golds too are selling some pieces of the court if you want to have a little bit of history.
I drove down yesterday, as a matter of fact. I was down on Menominee Street down there, and I looked, and boy, that facility is. I haven't paid attention to it for a few months, but with this kind of weather we've had, they've really been able to do a lot of work.
The Sonantag Center?
Yes, and it's really, what is the big center? But then it looks like off to the side, they're building, looks like dorms or apartments. I don't know what that is. And, but the main facility looks like it's really coming along. They're getting some of the outside facade, it looks like, kind of finished.
Mm-hmm.
But they were working outside yesterday, and this weather has been very conducive to winter construction in Wisconsin, which doesn't happen all the time. So I would think they've got to be on track to really get this thing done on time.
Well, I know I think it actually is a little bit delayed, so it's going to be in the summer now. I think they were planning on it having a little bit sooner than that. Yeah, because they're actually doing graduation in Zorn now.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. So, but
well, some of the surrounding area for parking and things like that would be limited at this point in time too.
Right.
But the facility itself looks like it's well on its way.
Yeah, just for a reminder here, you got the event center, then the field house, the UW Eau Claire Center for Health and Wellbeing, offices for athletics, new Mayo Clinic Health System Diagnostic Imaging and Sports Medicine Center, and a couple. So it's a couple different things.
How many seats will be in there?
This total capacity of 5,000 seating for 3,944. Total capacity 5,000. Seating is 3,944. Standing room an additional 1,056. So 5,000.
But that's no ice.
I'm just reading it.
They're not going to put ice in there.
No. That's hot.
And I was talking to somebody, and the other night, as a matter of fact, we were talking about the facility, and they brought this up, and I think it's a good point, because these state tournaments now, they're not. I don't think the boys' state hockey tournament is played at either the Dane County Coliseum or the Kohl Center. They played in Verona or someplace. But they said, why didn't we have the foresight, or why didn't somebody have the foresight to build this big enough? If you're going to build it new, do it right, or do it, and put ice in there. 5,000 seat capacity. You've got the state high school hockey tournament in Eau Claire. You do, because we're, this area is a hotbed for hockey. And you get a brand new 5,000 seat facility. You've got hotels, you got all kinds of business. And I thought the same thing when they were building it, and I know dollars and all the other things are involved, just as a fan looking over the top without worrying about all the other decisions, but they're not building it big enough.
Yeah.
But they could have, thought outside the box, and 5,000 seat capacity. You could have brought the state hockey tournament here.
I know the Blue Golds are hoping, they're definitely, we've had these talks on like Rolling with the Golds podcast and such too. And yeah, potentially holding some pretty big tournaments and all that stuff too. So
yeah, they can have, but no ice, you can't have hockey.
Well, no, but I mean, you got hoops and other stuff over there they could be doing too, even lacrosse and all those other events too. So, by the way, the apartment thing, I should have told you earlier, they are building a hotel next over there.
Oh,
too.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
okay.
I should have told you that earlier, but that was, I think it's the Pablo Group is doing that.
Oh, okay.
Over there.
Well,
but,
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a hotel being built.
I just wondered what
so.
that was, and I think that's going to be a busy. But like again, you build that with more capacity for more tournaments. You've just built in revenue for not only that hotel and other hotels that aren't far away from there, right up the hill, and for the restaurants and everything else that's around there. You bring in people that come to a state tournament. I don't care what it is. You've been to state tournaments, and so have I. What do people do? They spend money. They shop. They eat. They drink. They buy stuff. And, there's revenue coming into the area. So I just, and when it was built, when they were start talking about it, I thought, too, jeepers, I wish they'd put ice in there.
Never know.
From the start.
Yep.
I hope the structure is adaptable to that in the future. I don't know, but I just, conversation of the night was, it'd have been perfect because it'd be the facility, the new facility, 5,000 people, state hockey, it's in Verona or someplace now. And, if it's not at the Coliseum or not at the Kohl Center, state tournament, you don't have to have it in Madison. Bring it out here. The girls go to Green Bay for basketball. I don't even know where the state wrestling. I don't think the state wrestling tournament is at Fieldhouse anymore, is it?
It's in Madison.
Yeah. Yeah, but is it in Madison, or is it at a university facility, or is it around the perimeter someplace?
I believe it's still. I'll double check unless they've changed it here, but I still believe it's stay same locale. So, state tournament moved to the Fieldhouse. So yep, in 1988, Kohl Center. Okay, it is Kohl Center.
Okay,
so,
good.
Yep.
And that's when you're there, that's great because it's you got the lights, you got the seats, you got the boxes, you got the refreshment and everything else. And if you're going to move it out of the university facilities, compete for it.
Track and fields and lacrosse, state track and fields and lacrosse. So, speaking of which, Blue Golds and track and field, we've got a new episode of the Rolling with the Golds podcast dropping here in just a little bit. It's a really awesome conversation, a fantastic story. We catch up with national champion Mitch Stegman, and this kid has quite the story. So he's decathlon national champion. And not to give it the whole thing away because it's better with Mitch talking about it, but this was a kid that he was in a small town, like he said, 28 kids in his high school graduating class.
Wow.
Went to UW-Eau Claire, wasn't going to do track and field. That's not why he went, and he was a state champion, like pole vault. Emailed Coach Schneider and said, "Hey, do you want, because at first he tried basketball. He's like, but then basketball never got back to him or something like that. Then emailed Coach Schneider over there, said, yeah, come on out. And lo and behold, now he's national champion and all that. So it's just a fantastic story to hear this kid. Like that wasn't, he was looking just to go to school first. Great results, fantastic in high school, and ends up competing on the track and field team and's got a couple national championships.
Good for him. Good for him.
It's a really cool story. So spent about 50 minutes talking with him. Definitely a people person. So it's a very good conversation there. So yes, Suring High School. We're like an hour north of Green Bay.
Yep. I've heard of Suring. Yep. I've never been there, but I've heard of Suring over in that part of the state.
Yeah. So just a really cool conversation with him. And I loved the story about this is a kid who is like just dominate. Like he was going through like pole vaulting and how he was a state champion, like the results. And I'm like, and no, you didn't think about going It's like, hey, just sent an email over when he was enrolled already, and
Sure.
boom, national champ.
And you talk to the coach, you'll probably agree with the old statement that even a blind mouse finds a cheese once in a while. This guy found him. He didn't find the kid, but that's the secret to coaching. You got to be good, but you got to be lucky once in a while too, and land some of these kids.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that'll drop down here and right about 9 o'clock. Right about 9 o'clock. So, all right. Baseball wise, kept catching up. Let me pull up the texting line here, see if we got any texts sitting in there. We were talking some Brewers. Here we go. What I'm looking forward to for the Brewers this year is the start of a new era. It's a big unknown, but it's something to kind of be excited about, similar to the feelings I had about the Packers this past season. That's according to Craig, it looks like, on the texting line. The storyline that I'm following, this is from Eric. The storyline that I'm following this season for the Brewers is the starting rotation. Is Freddie ready? Is Freddie ready to be the new number one? And after that, who's going to be the guys at 2, 3, 4, and 5? Yeah, I think Freddie, this is an opportunity for him to, can he be that ace? That guy that when he's out there, you're pretty confident every time he's out there, you're going to come away with a win. You're not going to, but that's why you have an ace, right? That guy that can stop maybe a bad run or something like that. But can Freddie elevate his game another notch?
I think he's shown he can, but he has to do it consistently because he'll pitch great for a month or two, and then all of a sudden he'll get hurt or something will happen. Will he have a couple bad outings? He'll start walking guys and then give up a home run. So if he can do that consistently, and I think he's got the ability to do it because I think he's shown he can do it in the past, but he's got to do it for a longer term.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Scrolling through some more here. We've got Dave saying, the storyline that I'm following is Jackson Churio. Spotlight is definitely on him. We'll see if he can live up to the high expectations. That's the one thing I'm kind of worried about from a fan's perspective. Like, are we going to almost live and die on every single bat with Jackson Churio right away in spring training? I hope people don't overreact to whether it's good or bad outings or anything like that.
I think the one thing he's got going for him, and he obviously he's got more than one thing, but I think outside of baseball, he's in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
If he was in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, where the media is going to be over him every time he goes to bat or every time he swings the bat or every time he's in the field, they're going to evaluate his performance. The media isn't New York or Chicago and Milwaukee. So he's going to have the benefit of not being under that microscope, although he will be closely watched. But that's different than being under the microscope every time you take the field. So I think that'll take some of the pressure off him as well.
I was saying, not to go into a Green Bay thing, but you mentioned that. And is it almost sometimes a double-edged sword, though, too? Like, okay, Milwaukee may not have, and I'm going to use Green Bay here for an example, because when, Rodgers, we were talking about him, and he's got to go to that New York media, right? And he had it large, Green Bay. I think it's fair to say Rodgers changed the last few years. Something's changed with him. But even though there's a smaller media market, if you become such a great player in a smaller town, doesn't that ego or doesn't that aura kind of get a little bit bigger too, because you're in that smaller market, you're more of a fan base, you don't have the bigger media, but you're viewed upon by fans like this almost like godlike person.
And when you're in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, I know, had the feeling that he owned the media.
Yeah.
In New York, he's not, I don't care what he does, he's not going to own the media in New York. They're going to be very, critical is not the word, but they're going to be very observant of everything he does, and they're going to report it in the New York way, not the Green Bay nice way. So I think in Green Bay, he had the feeling that, he could manipulate, so to speak, the media. New York, that's not going to happen. And it's not happening already. You see, there are some, a little bit of contentiousness between he and some of the media in New York. So, it's a different world. There's no question about it.
Do you think you know where I'm getting at on that thing though, too?
Yeah,
It's because, and that's where I don't know if it's going to turn out that way. Jordan Love, everything that we've heard and everything we've seen seems to be this humble kid and, very nice and all that. And if he does continue to have success, I mean, if you're the Packers quarterback and you're really good and you're having success, you're put on this pedestal. You're put on. You may not have a bigger media to always focus on you, but you go to the grocery store, everybody knows who the heck you are. You're put on that pedal. It's got to mess with some people's minds when you get to that certain point where you're having success and people just kind of like bow down to you or praise you for every single thing.
And that's a lot different than, you go to not just the press, but the people in the big cities expect more as well. I mean, Jordan Love goes in after that first Vikings game, and I remember that because I was there, and they didn't get a first down till almost halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're in New York after that game and you go to the grocery store, what in the world's the matter with you, using the language a little more graphic than that?
Mm-hmm.
What's the matter with you guys? And in Green Bay, Jordan, nice game. Better luck next time. That sort of thing. It's just two different worlds.
It is.
Even Chicago, which is just 90 miles down the road from Milwaukee, or not even that, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different world. The fans are different. They're almost seem like the players are indebted to them.
Mm-hmm.
In Green Bay, well, even Milwaukee for baseball, we appreciate the players and respect their ability.
Yeah.
I think at least most fans do. Yeah, we get upset and this, that, and the other thing, and we'll talk to each other about that stupid. Don't know what he do.
We won't say it to them, though.
No, I was going to say it. But if he walked in, oh, Jordan, what a girl! How are you? Oh, it's good to see you.
Yep.
New York, that doesn't happen. Chicago, that doesn't happen. L.A., Atlanta, it doesn't happen.
Is it that Midwest?
Philadelphia,
nice?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Well, Chicago or Midwest, but they're not Midwest.
Wisconsin.
I think even in the Twin Cities, and that's a bigger market than Green Bay. I don't think the media is critical like they are for New York or Chicago. Yep. I think there is something to say about Midwest nice when you get past Beloit, that all changes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's because I don't know who I was talking with a couple weeks ago, but they were talking about or asking, like how Aaron's kind of different and all that, and I'm like, you kind of wonder, does that play with someone's mind though? Like for how long you're viewed as this can do no wrong, sort of thing. Pretty much a god in that area. And does it kind of eventually kind of mess with your mind a little bit? Like I can do and say whatever I want and people are still going to love me, really,
Yeah, and you do notice that his, I don't know, public posture is a little different since he's been in New York than when he was in Green Bay. I think he's a little more uppity, so to speak, now that he's in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a little bit different. I won't say he's majorly different, but he's a little bit different. His public persona, at least the way I perceive it, watching him, and I don't see him all that often, but I've seen him on the McAtee show or some other interview types of things. He's a little bit more New Yorkish.
Because I remember one year he was at the girls' state basketball tournament.
Yeah,
sitting courtside watching hoops over there, and kind of involved in Wisconsin stuff, and later on it just kind of felt like nope, you don't see him anymore. It's to the point now, like I told this story before, but then we got to take a break. So the story when Jordan Love tried to help somebody get out of the ditch in a winter storm over there. My wife Veronica heard about that. You know what her first response was? Aaron would never do that.
That's probably true.
And I'm like, I don't know that for sure, but you're probably, so she loves Jordan Love now because of that one story.
And it goes back to, remember the story of Bart Starr?
Mm-hmm.
Down in Alabama. He and his wife were driving down the road, and a lady was stopped on the side of the road. She had a flat tire, and she got out, or he stopped and said, "Can I?" She didn't know who he was right away. And he changed her tire for her. And then she realized who it was. And then she got out some kind of a Green Bay flag she had in her car. He said, "I'm a Packer fan." But I don't know, would Aaron Rodgers stop and change a tire or help push somebody out of a ditch? I don't know. Maybe he would. I wouldn't say no.
Right.
But
that's the perception.
My bet would be that he wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's the perception now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It would be curious if you'd asked that 15 years ago. Be like, oh yeah, he would. I don't know. I think it's different now. So
yeah, they get full of them. You can't blame them. They get full of themselves, and you read your clippings, and it is who you are.
Hey, we got a listener, Tim in the Cooley region. Shout out to the Cooley region over there. Tim says, I'm looking forward to watching the rookies from last year and seeing their development. Frelick, Mitchell, Terang. So,
I'm right with you.
Mhm.
Same thing. And I also think the Brewers have an advantage, and I think they did a smart thing, and time will tell how smart it was, by picking Murphy to be the manager
Mhm.
rather than going get some retread that wasn't familiar with this roster. Murphy was there in the dugout with Counsell,
Mhm.
and he knew how Counsell was successful. He knows how he used these young kids and the attitude of these young kids. So I think they made a good move by making Murphy the manager, because the learning curve, he's going to learn how to be a manager, but the learning curve as far as his roster is concerned and how they perform and how they can perform is really going to be, it's going to be a month that he doesn't have to take in spring training.
Right.
He knows who these guys are, how they did last year, where they played, how they played, where they did the best. So he's coming in with a boatload of knowledge that a retread,
Or even maybe a first-time manager.
yeah, right.
You know,
But he was on that bench,
right.
and I
An
think he was
experienced
there.
guy,
Yeah,
veteran,
yeah,
to help out maybe these younger guys
yep,
continue to
yep,
grow.
yep, exactly. So I
So,
think that's another thing that we're all looking for and hoping for success. But I think they've built in some success by hiring him, who's familiar with the roster, familiar with the Milwaukee organization, and I just think that's a bonus too.
really quick, receiver to fur. Receiver to fur. Murphy's main role won't be about wins and losses. It'll be about the continued development of these younger players.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think it's tied hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
I think as he finds out maybe one of these guys isn't up to it, he sits on the bench or maybe goes down for a month. That's going to be part of it too. But the bottom line is you got to win.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these young guys are going to play a big part in that, and his overseeing their development is going to go a long way
Mm-hmm.
for that.
Because I think we all assume Ricky Weeks is probably going to be, whenever that time is, the next manager.
Very well. I'm not familiar with Ricky Weeks'
because the title is
baseball
weird.
knowledge or anything like that. What he's done, is he managed in the minor leagues at all, or done anything like that?
It's kind of similar to Craig Counsell's past.
Okay.
A little bit in the front office, not as much as Craig did, but he doesn't have the bench coach title. It's associate manager, which is a little different. So, but
whether that more responsibility, more power, I don't know what that's going to mean, but I hope it's a good move.
Yep. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll do some outdoor tidbits with Mr. Jake Bilks coming up in just a few minutes.
You can channel hop between all our stations live, stream our podcasts, and browse our blogs. Around715.com even lets you in on special local fundraisers with an option to let us know about your special event so we can get the word out for you. See, one click does so much. Bookmark it and keep coming back. There's always something new at Around715.com from the stations of Midwest Family Eau Claire.
Hi, it's Steve Mann. Have you heard the commercials for the Mark Patrick Stop Smoking seminars? And they said only $49.99 and it could work for you. So I thought, that's not even a week's worth of smoking. So I went. And guess what? It did work for me. You know, my friends and family are still amazed. I quit smoking. I didn't have cravings, anxiety, or weight gain. Listen, I don't know how it works, but I know it works because I'm living proof and it's 100% guaranteed. So what do you got to lose? I'll tell you what you got to lose. A very bad habit.
Join Mark Patrick seminars and stop smoking now without cravings, irritability, weight gain, or your money back. Early bird special only $49.99 guaranteed. Hypnosis designed to work without anxiety, irritability, or weight gain. Early bird special only $49.99. Become a non-smoker. That's right. Seminar Sunday, February 25th at the Best Western Plus Eau Claire Conference Center in Eau Claire. Stop smoking seminar 2 p.m. Weight loss seminar 11 a.m. Sign up at markpatrickseminars.com.
For over 49 years, Asher Lassen Exteriors has been committed to craftsmanship, innovation, and outstanding customer service as Western Wisconsin's trusted window and door replacement experts. Enjoy super savings today and save up to 20% off on your entire purchase of windows and doors. Plus no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. Our highly trained certified technicians can beautify and protect your home with Renewal by Andersen windows and doors. Call Asher's for your free no obligation estimate at 888-GO-ASHER or visit goasher.com.
Not only can you listen to your favorite radio show in the world, but now you can watch why everyone says Dan has a face for radio. Watch the Dan Kasper Show live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Weekday mornings from 6 to 9. Answering your questions and giving you the tips you need to be successful and safe in the outdoors. It's time for your Outdoor Tidbits. Have a question you'd like answered by Jake? Send it to us, and we'll ask for you.
All right, time for Outdoor Tidbits with our DNR warden buddy, Mr. Jake Bulks here this morning. Jake, are you out on the roads right now? You being safe? How are the road conditions if you're out there?
I haven't been driving yet.
Okay.
But it looks like it's, a little snow here, a little slippery there.
Right. So, hey, speaking of snow, we haven't had a whole lot this year. Obvious. But snowmobile trails, probably for a lot of people around our area, haven't been open, or if they were opened, it was for a very short time. Somebody had texted in a little bit earlier asking, even with snowmobile trails closed, are people allowed to use ATVs and UTVs on there? I thought I knew the answer, but I'm like, I better double check with the expert at hand.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. The short answer is no. So if you have snowmobile trails, you can only have snowmobiles on them. And a snowmobile is defined as a machine that was like manufactured to be a snowmobile. So you can't have an ATV or UTV with tracks on a snowmobile trail, even when they're open. It can only be like a machine designed as a snowmobile. But the reason for it all is the ATV and UTV trails are managed by the county. And even if the trails, like the ATV trails, are closed and it hasn't snowed yet, if they have those trails closed, then they're just closed. They're not open for anything. And then the snowmobile trails, a lot of them are actually, on private land. So there's not a real trail unless there's snow. So it couldn't just be bopping through someone's private farm field or woods or something like that anyway. So ATV trails, only ATVs when they're open. Snowmobile trails, only snowmobile trails when they're open. Gotcha. Otherwise, if it's closed, they're closed.
Now,
that's a good question.
Now, like with roadways and such, still able, because you got to have that license plate on them though too, right?
Yeah, so the road routes are open. So year-round, any road route is open. So, wherever you live, Town of Union, Springbrook, wherever. If the road routes are open, there's an ordinance for it and allows it, then those are good any time of the year. You just, like you said, you're right. You have to have license plates. You have to have your machines up to up to code. And that's the same at trails too. But when you got to have a license plate, you got to have your lights on. Anyone under 18's got to have a helmet, and all those other ATV, UTV registration or regulations.
Yeah, there we go.
What roads, Jake, are actually open? I mean, you can't go on a. Can you go on a state highway with an ATV or UTV, or just town roads, county roads? What's available?
Interstates, like an I-94 type interstate, those are 100% closed to anything. But all roads are inherently closed unless the local township creates an ordinance to open them. So basically, you have to check in the area. The state doesn't like open roads to road routes. The townships do. So if you have a cabin up north, or if you live around here and you want to ride your machine on the roads, you just have to do a little research. Go to like the town of Washington or the town of Seymour or the town of Union. Go to their pages, look up their ATV, UTV ordinances, and then find out what they allow on it. So like town of Seymour recently just opened some of theirs. Town of Washington doesn't have any open ones, and vice versa. Union has some. So you kind of want to just do that due diligence of checking it before you ride.
But look at a state highway, like say Highway 27 north of Cadott. That's not available for ATVs or UTVs, is it?
Yeah, so that one's going to be closed. But I will say, like in some pretty rural parts of the state, they do once in a while have like segments of maybe a state highway open just to get to a different part of the trail or the road or something. But that's kind of few and far between. But for the most part, state highways, interstates, and then in most counties, a lot of even the county highways are closed. It's usually the roads that are owned by the towns or the townships. But every county is a little bit different in what they allow. But they should be labeled. So there should be like a green sign. I'm sure we've all seen it, that green sign with the picture of the ATV or UTV on it that shows that it's a route. So per the state law, any town that enacts an ordinance, they have to put those up on every road that has that's open to the ATVs, UTVs. So you should look for those as well.
Hey, Jake, we had a question that came in here a little bit of different direction. This texter is asking, sorry if this is a stupid question, but my son is getting ready for hunter safety. This will be the first time I have my son involved with hunter safety classes. Is it still like when I had to go back in the day, go all in person? Is there any online version of this? If you could give me any info on hunter safety classes, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so for, I guess I don't know the exact age because everything kind of switched with COVID.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily look at what age they run it. But everyone that's younger does have to go do it in person. I don't know if the age is 16 or 18 where you can start taking like an online home course, and then you have to come in and take a field day. So like if you're 30 years old, you don't have to go do the in-person stuff. You can do everything at home and then come in and spend one day with an instructor or like a DNR agent and get certified by doing like an in-person course. Otherwise, if you're 10, 12, 14, I know for sure you have to do it in person, go to the 3, 4, 5, 6 classes, whatever that class is designed, and learn it all in person.
Is there an age minimum, or could it be, is it open to any age? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's open to any age now because they changed the hunting law to, you can hunt at any age.
Okay.
But we strongly recommend, and I think some instructors or like people that run the classes, they're all public volunteers. I think a lot of them tend to set the limits at like 10 years old or maybe 9, simply for the reason that they want to make sure that if they're putting kids through the courses, that they're comprehending everything, that they're ready to handle a gun, that they're taking in the severity of, the situation, i.e., just handling the gun and what it means and what it can do and stuff like that.
Jake, we got one more that came in right before the buzzer here. Question, can I bow hunt coyotes in the city limits?
There's It's a good question. Anytime anything's in the city, when it's hunting, trapping, I always defer to check the county ordinances or the city ordinances because they do reference different types of hunting. They have to allow bow deer hunting, and to be honest, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to bow coyote hunt just like bow turkey hunt. I'm pretty sure you can bow hunt anything in the city, but I'll always defer it back to their city ordinance just because it's their rules. The state doesn't restrict it. As a state employee or a state DNR warden, I would say yes, because as long as you're hunting during an open season, have your licenses and such, you can hunt anywhere, fish anywhere in the state. It's local townships and cities that enact hunting or these different ordinances for safety. So it's probably going to be a yes, but have that, or if they're listening, just go onto their website, type in bow hunting or find their ordinance, and they should be able to give you a good answer online.
All right, there you go, Jake. So I got to imagine water still with the ice level still getting down there and such. Have you still seen anybody with shanties or ice shacks underwater yet?
I've seen plenty of people send me pictures of shanties across the state halfway in the water, unfortunately.
Man.
But I think after we talked last week, I stopped out at Altoona. I went to a couple of boat launches to go check people and stuff, and for sure on the north side, and I'm sure it's the same on the south. I didn't get over there. And this is the same with most lakes around here. The ice is all right in the middle, 4, 5, 10 inches ice, but getting there is where it's starting to get real sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
The ice is pulling back from the shoreline, and on the north side of Altoona, the ice is pulling back and you could jump on it. But then about 20 yards out was a 4 or 5 inch crack of just open water that you had to kind of jump over, and the whole ice sheet there was kind of rocking with my weight, so I wasn't super comfortable with it. So this isn't cold enough to really start creating that ice, and now all the snow obviously just going to insulate it a little bit. So I would definitely be really, really careful if you're jumping out on the ice or you're out recreating.
Absolutely, Jake. We appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you for answering these questions, and we'll catch up with you again next week. Okay, bud?
Yeah, no, sounds good. Good questions this week, and always appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. There you go. Jake Boakes, Conservation Warden for the state of Wisconsin, joining us here this morning.
Now, be careful with those ATVs and UTVs on the road because they got the knobby tires on them, and that's great for out in the woods or in the fields or something like that. But when you're driving those things on the road, where there's ice and this sort of stuff, the plowed and it gets down to ice, they are dangerous. They're slippery. Last month, I lost a friend doing that. An ATV on the road was slippery and icy, lost control on the road, and he ended up dying in an ATV accident because he was on the road with it. Now, they're very useful for doing chores and everything else, but be careful if you're driving on these kind of roads. Knobby tires are wonderful, but, going through snow, going through mud, dirt, this, that, and the other thing, not on ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back to wrap up things. Bucks are back in action. We'll make some picks and predicts coming up in just a few minutes. Time for some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire, located right next to the Banbury Place. NASCAR fans, you're looking for somewhere to maybe get in on the action and catch some of the races, you can head on over there where they also do weekly picks for the races starting this week, Daytona, and running the entire race season. So looking for somewhere to catch the race, head on over to the Elbow Room in Eau Claire, again located right next to Banbury Place. Let's I do have one college game of note here. Number 11 South Carolina taking on number 13 Auburn. Why do I bring that one up? Well, first of all, it's two top 15 teams in there. But the head coach for South Carolina, I don't know if you remember who he is or not. Longtime Badger basketball assistant Lamont Paris is the head coach over at South Carolina, and he's got this team ranked number 11 in the country. He was with Wisconsin for 7 years, 2010 to 2017. Was at Chattanooga right before this for a few years here too. He's also getting talked about potentially being the new Ohio State basketball coach because he is from originally Ohio. So maybe some Badger fans would like Lamont Paris as their head coach at some point.
Wait and see what happens.
But he is the leader for Coach of the Year in college basketball too. So
good for him.
Yeah. So number 2 right now, South Carolina is in the SEC, just behind Alabama, half game over there. So I'm good. Why not?
Good
Badger.
basketball down. SEC and Big 12 are good conferences this year.
Absolutely. So why not? I'm going with South Carolina. Go for a former Badger.
Absolutely. We'll take them all the time.
Yep, definitely. All right, we got a couple of hoops games, NBA games for tonight. The Timberwolves taking on the Portland Trailblazers. Do I need to ask who you're picking in that one?
Not the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I'll take Minnesota in that one too. How about Bucks at the Grizzlies? Bucks are favored by nearly 12.
Well, Morant's not playing.
Right.
So they better. I mean, that's for the expectations of the Bucks. I don't think that's an outlandish ask.
Yeah,
they just got to play better.
Consistent, right?
Yeah,
consistent.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'll take the Bucks. I'll be curious though if they do sit out. Like Damian and Giannis or anything like that.
Well, all bets are off if those guys don't play. I mean, roster to roster, they should be 10 to 12 points better than the Memphis Grizzlies. But, they don't call it that. What's that term they were using when these guys?
Load management?
Load management. I think the NBA got all over them for that. And, load management isn't acceptable anymore because what you're telling them is fans, you're getting jabbed for money and not going to watch the Stars.
Right.
I don't think that was good PR.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see if I'll be in late. I don't know if they'll give them an extra day because the All-Star break is Dame and Giannis are playing in the game, and Doc is coaching it. So Doc might not play him a whole lot in that game. We'll see, but I don't know.
I don't think you would.
Yeah.
That's one of the advantages of having your coach being the coach of the All-Star team.
Just make everybody else from like the Celtics and the Cavs and those guys rack up the minutes.
Absolutely.
In that thing.
Let them all play.
Yep. Definitely. So, but it's kind of the second half then tips off next week. I know we're a little over halfway through, but this to me is like the second half of the season then.
In these All-Star games, tell me who the most valuable player was in the All-Star game last year. I mean, those are things that it's in one ear and out the other ear. You for a moment who it is, and then it's gone. It's not very high profile. Same thing with the slam dunk contest now. You don't have the Jordans in there or Dominique Wilkins,
Vince Carter,
yeah. Some of these guys that were iconic dunkers. Now you're finding guys that are good basketball players, good dunkers, but they're not the guys that make you ooh and ah.
I've one thing I will say though too is I've learned to my old wise age now.
Yes.
That I've kind of beginning to realize that All-Star games and that aren't for me anymore. They're for Hudson and the kiddos over there.
Yeah.
So, because I did have to watch the Pro Bowl flag football. It wasn't bad. Honestly, it wasn't that bad, but Hudson was all about it. I'm like, okay, this is why they're doing it.
Well, it's nice to see these guys with their helmets off and see their face. I mean, if they can make it work, no problem. I'm not going to watch it. If I got something else to do, it's pretty low priority.
Mhm.
But like you said, for the young kids and be able to recognize these guys with their helmets off and, not get hurt. They don't try and do something silly and turn a knee or an ankle or do something stupid.
Yep.
Then it's fine.
Yep, because he's already wanting to watch the All-Star game and all that. And I'm like, oh, we'll have it on. Won't be defense. It'll just be a lot of offense.
Well, that's never been a defensive game. That's
No.
I mean, if it's not 160 to 155, it hasn't been a good game.
Should be over 200 or close to 200.
Well, I know it's getting unbelievable.
What have been this NBA All-Star? They are going back. Remember, and you probably already do. It's the traditional East-West. They're not drafting their teams.
Yep.
Which
I like better anyway.
I do too.
It keeps the rivalries in place.
Mm-hmm.
The East and the West, whether it's the All-Star game or the playoffs.
Right.
Keeps that in place, and I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, last year's score was 184 to 175.
There you go.
Team Giannis won that one.
There you are.
So, in case you were wondering, Jason Tatum was the MVP since you brought it up last year. So, Jason Tatum, MVP.
Well, I hope he's the MVP this year and plays about 40 minutes.
Right. I agree with you. All right. Anything else on the docket?
Memorial and Menominee High School basketball in Eau Claire tonight. And we get closer to the tournaments. And, Memorial, unfortunately, lost Jesperson. So their season has changed a little bit with injuries. But hockey is going on, and so lots of good things.
Yep. You mentioned hockey. We've got tonight Chi High, number 1 seeded Chi High, takes on DC Everest, and Memorial will be taking on Superior in a 4-5 matchup. So got local team still in action over there, and Brandon will break all those down coming up tomorrow for us. I'm sure he'll probably be paying attention.
I wonder how many
to that
nights he gets to eat supper at home with basketball and hockey and girls basketball and everything else going on. Man, he's
not
there.
many.
He's there.
Yeah, and from what he's told me, I mean, he's usually in the office still around 11 midnight, all that stuff. So
hot dogs from the refreshment stand.
Yep.
That's supper.
Yep, exactly. So, but he'll break it all down for us. And plus, we still got, I know wrestling, we got some team states we mentioned the other day, but shout out to Menominee going to team state wrestling for the first time.
Oh, good.
In school history.
Good.
So they're heading down there. But that time of year now.
Yeah, which, I think swimming is the first state championships down there. I don't even know where they hold that now. They used to have it on campus at the old natatorium, but I don't even know where the state swim meet is held. And I don't know. They were building a replacement for the natatorium, which was basketball, and it was a fantastic facility down on the lower end of campus. But I don't know what they've got there now.
State meet is at the Waukesha South High School natatorium. So
there you go. Yep. Not in Madison anymore.
Nope. All right, that's going to do it for us. DP and the Danets are up next. We'll be back tomorrow morning, though, just past 6 a.m. See you then. Talk to you then.